So, you told me I could ask you anything, so
Yep.
I'm going to go for it. In many religions and different belief systems or mythologies, from the idea of where we came from and what this existence in the material realm is, from the East, Hinduism, where they call it the Maya, to Toltec religion, where it's called the biggest illusion projected by the moon, to Egyptian mythology, where this realm is not the end-all, be-all of existence. What would you deem the material realm is in correlation to the idea of the 13 bodies of a human being and the idea of what material and energy is? So this existence of 4 dimensions, our physical state in this universe, like why do people call it an illusion? Is it a projection? Like what is it how would you describe it to us mere mortals?
Right. Now this is a pretty big question, and you're basically asking me to explain physics. All of it.
Hologram illusion. Let's start there.
Okay, so let's just start with some of the model. Like when I talk about these things, I have to make it very clear that I'm talking about models and ideas, because I'm trying to convey, ways of thinking that can assist people in kind of grasping the general direction of what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Because again, we've had several hundred years of physics trying to explain even the simplest basics of this. And it would,
with the 4 dimensions.
exactly, it would be pretty arrogant of me to say that I have this model that covers everything, but I can give you models and examples that can assist you in like thinking in the right direction. Okay, so now the question is, what is the premise of materialized existence? Now, when you look at all traditions and spiritual teachings, we start with the idea of soul, Atma, or even God, oneness, whatever it is, that exists outside existence. Now, and then the idea is that as soul, I often refer to that as Atma, the core of what you are spiritually, has absolutely no consciousness of itself. When we think of a evolutionary line, also understand that time does not exist. The linear reality does not really exist. So this is again a model. If you think that there's a big beginning and an end, think of the start of the whole journey as being in an existence where you cannot experience anything, where there's absolutely nothing. How do you know who you are? You can't, because to know anything, you need to experience. To experience, there needs to be a separation.
So
you are here.
and an object.
Exactly. And to do that, you need space. You need matter, energy, you need consciousness, all of that. So if you think of, you have this absolute white light that cannot be experienced because it is. And when you project that through a prism, you will have different colors, different rays. You can see different colors of light. It's the same white light, but it's separated into the different vibrations and frequencies, so you can see colors. Those same colors are present in the white light, but in the white light you can't see it. So the manifested existence is exactly that. And this is also what we refer to as fractalization, which basically means, if you think of, first you have that prism, and then you, for instance, you take the red rays and place that through another prism, and that will be in spectrum, and then you do that again and again and again and again. And this is basically all existence. So you end up with infinite different vibrations and frequencies and combinations. And that then creates the dimensions, the different laws of nature, and the different types of manifestations and forms, so that we can experience ourselves. And what we experience then is the distance between our current vibration and what we vibrate is also our consciousness. And then the next level. Our journey is always about where we're at and what is the next realization, because that's the next step. And then we have what we call the field of resistance between those two, the distance between what you currently believe and what is. And then you will be confronted and shown this is how life works and this is what you believe, because whenever you do something, you act on the assumption that you understand what it is you're interacting with, the purpose of it, and what function it will have in your life and what you want to achieve through this interaction. And life will show you, yeah, but not quite. And that's the distance. That's the difference between what you currently believe.
Karma.
Yes, this is what karma is. It's simply the distance between what you believe and what is. And every time you interact with anything, it's number one, what we call a fractalization of yourself. It's the light coming through you, through a prism, and then being manifested in different forms. So you can say, oh, this is what my white light looks like. It's got that frequency and that frequency and that frequency and that frequency, and you can't see it in the light that is your own flow. And that will translate into different forms. Now, by interacting with that, because remember then when you have your white light flow coming through, you can't see it. Then you will see a manifestation. You will assume you understand what it is. And you will interact with it based on your current understanding. It's always wrong. Because there is always more. That is karma. It's basically the next step, and it will be shown to you. So life will say, come over here. But to come over here, you have to move. And the way you move is transforming by learning and understanding that, oh, life works a little bit different from what I believed. And then you adapt, just like evolution. So it happens thousands of times every day. So everything you experience, therefore, is a projection of your own light. At the same time, what exists around you actually exists. So if you think of everything around you as basically the screen, and then you project your own movie onto that screen, and it means whatever carries the vibrations and those colors of your white light when it is being projected through that prism, that is what you will notice. That's what you will see. And this is also why your brain hardly notices anything, because you will gravitate towards the situations and manifestations that vibrate that color, that frequency.
And it's
And
an
nothing else.
idea in my own mind. It's kind of like my reticular activation system in my brain basically telling me what I need to survive is what I see.
Exactly. So you will have a response in your brain chemically and in your nervous system based on the recognition, because whenever you're being triggered, it's because you believe this affects me. Mm-hmm. You know, for instance, when people talk all the time, but all of a sudden someone says something that will promote
And
a
your ear
reaction.
goes up and boom.
Exactly, because at that exact moment, that word or that sentence carries the vibration which is part of that color that is being projected into the world from your white light. And that's what you need to learn so you understand your own light
It's
by pulling
programming.
it apart.
My own programming.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is how we learn, by basically pulling ourselves apart. And that's what we experience. So when we say that this is a projection, it's not just a projection, but in our own individual journeys, it means that whatever is relevant to you, that is your projection of those vibrations and frequencies that are relevant to what you need to learn. And that changes all the time. Because if you can think of, you have a set of 20 million colors, and you will not be using all of them at the same time.
I could only see primary colors because that's what I'm programmed to see.
But still, when you study a specific type of karma, it may contain specific shades of that color and that color and that color and that color, and that's it. So it means to study that particular karma, only manifestations that carry those specific vibrations will be activated in your life. And those are then the frequencies and carrier objects or people or situations that you will respond to, because that hits home and you don't understand why. But because you're being triggered, then you interact. And then you have to resolve whatever comes up. And that's how you neutralize the distance between what you currently believe and what is. When that has been resolved, you understand that color and it starts to vibrate in you, which means you know what your white light is made of. And then you have the other frequencies. So this happens again and again and again. And because of that, we can say that, yes, all manifested life, it's all projections. But it's more the subjective projection, because an object, if it has the capability of carrying many different types of vibrations, different people can project different colors onto it.
Yeah, of
and
course.
They will only see the
Their
ones.
own, yeah.
Exactly. And this is why people can experience the same situations
In
so
a
many
different
different
way,
ways.
yeah.
It's not because they're wrong, it's simply because they are projecting their own light. And only certain frequencies of that light can be reflected in that manifestation, and it will all be different from each person.
And a goal for a human who seeks to evolve, as much as possible in one lifetime, that human would seek to try and lessen the amount of things that trigger them so that they receive more, right? More color.
Yes,
from the spectrum that they're
it's
exposed to in life in general,
it's
right?
having less resistance
Yeah.
to what is being shown.
Right.
So it's number one, listen, look, pay attention,
Awareness.
and then try to not have resistance. Because as long as we have resistance, we're in denial of the fact that this is a vibration that already belongs to your light.
Yeah.
So by not resisting it, we can absorb it, we can learn, and we can become it, because we already are it.
Yeah.
We just have the resistance to it. And when we understand this, we understand that all resistance is a waste of time, because it's our light already. It's just a matter of learning, how does this specific vibration or frequency work? And paying attention and try to adapt to whatever life is showing us, that is the quickest way. We can never win a discussion with reality, and people are still trying every day. So the moment we let go of the discussions and understand that everything that we're being shown are simply what we call fractalizations of the light we already are but have no awareness of. We can focus on how can this situation build awareness? How can that manifestation build awareness? What is it that I need to change in myself? How do I need to heal to accept this vibration?
Right.
And we become more efficient in looking for it instead of trying to deny it.
Yeah.
But basically this is what all teachings and traditions have been trying to explain. And there are different models based on cultures, different ways of relating to it. And it's the same when it comes to the different bodies that we also talk, about in different traditions. And it's simply...
In the system as you know it, it's 13, right?
Well, they're actually much more than that, but it depends on how you define it.
But what you're focusing on when it comes to the human
Yes.
and its ability to expand
Yes.
through multiple dimensions,
Yeah.
using different energetic extensions of itself.
Yes. And it's realizing that in us, in all of us, we do have, just like when we have a prism with, the physical light, sunlight, you will have all the primary colors. And it's like that when it comes to the type of light and flow that comes through an individual incarnating as a human. It will always have these primary colors, these primary vibrations. And those primary vibrations can then be separated into specific bodies. There are aspects of life. Just like, again, you take the flow.
Future, past, present, relationships, personal relationships, sexual ones.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
varies in
Yes.
different aspects of existence
Exactly.
and relation,
Yes.
right?
And also, the different bodies are simply different rays, which means different types of consciousness. When we talk about the astral, for instance, that is more connected to emotions, creativity, imagination, a lot of that, and the causal body is more connected to context, how things work together. It's cause and effect and all that, which is a different approach.
The
than
individual
astral.
and their environment.
Exactly. And of course you have the mental, which is more about the structure and understanding. So all these bodies represent different rays, different levels of vibration and frequency. When we put them all together, that's the kind of organic consciousness of a human.
The rainbow.
Exactly, but you can also separate them and look at like one approach at the time. Just like when you have white light through a prism, you can look at red, you can look at purple, you can, it's the same thing. But
And some of them blend into each other or
Yes.
work together to reach
Of course.
other aspects of,
But I would
of
say
that
it's,
prism.
if you think of all these different vibrations, just like keys on a piano, you do not play piano concert with one finger on one key. It's like all organic. So all of these bodies and aspects of yourself, and also in your projections, will be activated just like a piano concert. So it's all, organic. It's all very expressive. And therefore, you can't just look at one expression, because if you were like listening to only one key on the piano, it wouldn't make any sense because it sounds completely random when that key is being pushed. You can't understand it by timing it, or trying to like measure when exactly is this happening. It only makes sense when you listen to the whole
The
piano
orchestra
concert.
of it.
Exactly. And the context and like the organic expression of that musical piece. And if you think of our life as a piece of music that needs all these keys in a specific sequence.
Pythagorean mathematics.
Exactly. And it's through that we also understand our music, by seeing how are the different bodies activated, how are these different levels of projections and fractalization activated, and studying and understanding what is my music, what piece of music am I in this expression. So when looking at a lifetime, it's like a piano concert, and each
Color, sound.
Yes. And the different vibrations in different like sequence. And this is also, I think, what many of the spiritual systems have been trying to understand by having all of these models, because people of insight and consciousness have been able to observe that there are different vibrations and frequencies, And it doesn't just happen randomly. And
They're
you can,
patterns.
yes, and you can observe them, you can determine them, you can see how they work and how things are connected. So there are many ways of working with this. And of course, like my approach is also, a medical system based on this way of working, where you then work with all these bodies, work with the consciousness and the physical body and your life and energies and everything as one organic expression, because it is an organic expression, which is that piece of music. It's that piano concert. And you can learn to understand that whole piece of music. And everything makes sense once you have the whole piece.
Because you look at a human like a crystal, and when you shine your light on them,
Yes.
you're basically looking at their prism.
Yes.
All 7 primary, colors in the spectrum, including their bodies.
Yes.
And what they represent in context
Exactly.
with
And
their life.
everyone can learn how to work with this. And I find it interesting that in most traditions, when most spiritual traditions develop any form of medicine, it's based on this somehow. And they're trying to access it because they
I was
know
surprised
it's
to
there.
see the same thing in Mexico that I saw when I went to England to see what's happening in the East when
Yes.
it comes to the aura and the
Yes.
different bodies.
Right, because it's real. So it's also, yes, when people observe the aura, it's the same thing. It's the prism, the body being the prism, and one can see that the light of the aura is changing all the time based on what part of the piano concert we're in,
Yeah.
what keys are being pushed. So it's not static.
None
It's-
of it. We're spinning around
Yes.
in a massive planet that's like, how could we? I would never imagine anything being static.
Right, but still, our society, our civilization, operate on the assumption that everything is static. Everything is really dead.
We should give them a microscope.
Exactly. But in the world of physics, of course, they have moved away from that model a long time ago. They understand that nothing is solid. Matter
Vibrating.
is light and vibration, so that one has come a long way and is so far away from the collective perception of reality that it cannot be combined anymore.
Yeah.
It will take the human civilization decades to absorb and accept the principles of physics, like where it's at today even. And it's continuing to expand. So they're getting closer to what we often call spiritual principles. And I would say, finally, spirituality seems to be moving in the same direction.
Yeah, I'm really hopeful about that. It's exciting.
Yeah, it is. Because to me, everything can be explained. The old saying that, you can't possibly understand the ways of God is a way to create submission, because we can understand. It's limited by our level of consciousness. But existence itself is math. And it's math and expression. So based on your level of consciousness, you're able to access the information and understanding of how things work according to where you're at. Nothing is beyond your reach. It's only your own limitation that stops you.
So the way that you have that an individual can have up to maybe 13 layers, or you could look at 13 layers of that person's expression or their connection to their environment, right? With these 13 bodies. Can you do the same with the planets and with the cosmos?
Yes.
Is it possible to look at, let's say planet Saturn the same way, or even a constellation like one in the zodiac?
Well, what we need to understand is that when we look at the principle of fractalization, when we use that word in a spiritual context, it's slightly different from physics, but it's very similar. it's again thinking that there's a prism and then you have that split and then you have a new prism and a new prism and a new prism, and it goes on until you're able to get it. The process of fractalization is such that whenever you are exposed to something you don't see, when you can't relate to it, it will be split up even more. And it will continue until you recognize it. Oh, I get it. I can see it now. I can interact with it and learn. So there is absolutely no end to the level of fractalization. It stops when you see it, when you interact, and when you get a result. And then you go through the process of defractalization, which is first seeing the ingredients separately and then putting them together and being able to make that work and understand that. And then that will be combined with other realizations into even bigger pieces. So it's this process of pulling things apart to understand exactly how they work and then see how do they work in context and how does that work in even bigger context. Now, because of that, the principle of the one is in everything. So it means even an atom, even a particle, contains all the information about all other levels, because
So it is like, excuse me to interrupt, but it is, so what you're saying, it is like a hologram then? A holographic kind of system?
kind of, but it's more understanding that a detail cannot be detail of a whole if it doesn't contain the information of the whole.
But it does. It has.
It does, and that's the whole point. So it means that you can realize God, if you will, by meditating on a carrot,
Right.
because it's the same. It's your idea of the carrot that limits you from seeing God. So you see the carrot instead.
And
But-
that has been the thing that in many different religions and in many different kind of like, teachings has frustrated me the most about
Yes.
it. It's like, stop it. What are you saying?
Right.
And so it leads me to want to appreciate or learn to be more sensitive about the little things
Yeah.
that happen in everyday life, because I know that the time, whenever it comes and it happens, it's going to be one of those aha moments where that thing that I saw every day becomes something extraordinary. And that's what frustrates me so much
Right.
about this path that I'm on.
Right.
It's like, because I know it's in my face every day.
Yeah.
And it's my inability to see it.
Yeah. But
that
the thing
stops
is,
me from-
the most funny thing about it, once you realize it, is that you do see it. You just didn't recognize it. As I say, it's the process of the fish swimming around looking for water. And it's swimming around trying to find this mythical water, and it's doing its best, and it's asking everyone, where is the water? And it's like, you're in it. No, I'm not. I'm looking for it. Like,
Is that
listen
how you
to me.
felt when you
know?
woke up for the first time? I remember asking you years ago about what that feeling was when you finally discovered that suffering wasn't necessary. And that's the one thing that, that's my biggest dream about reaching a point of evolution where I no longer am connected to suffering the way that I am.
Right.
Because I can't separate myself from the pain of animals. I can't
Right.
separate myself from the pain of people suffering.
Right.
And so my suffering is ignited in these times of great conflict. And
Right.
so
But suffering is so easy to overcome. If you understand that,
really,
and
gee, explain me. Explain to me why it's so easy to overcome.
I will. Suffering is the thought, it should have been different. And that's an impossible thought, because if the manifested existence is math, everything that ever happens is math. It's the summary of everything that is present. And if you have, a series of number and you have like a summary, it couldn't have been different. So when you create the idea, it should have been different. It's impossible because you first create an expectation of something that can't be. And then you choose to feel pain because it's not what you think it should be. Well, it's impossible because it is what it is. So all suffering is the idea. It should have been different. That's impossible when everything in existence is the result of one mathematical organic expression.
You're not making me feel any better about suffering
I know.
with your math. But
It's
you
really that simple.
But you had explained to me that the moment when you had figured this all out, it was a moment of laughter for you.
Yes. I think for most, when you experience this in an individual form, the idea of suffering seems so ridiculous because you understand that it's not real. You create pain in yourself for something that can never be. And when you stop doing that and you relate to what is, it's so simple. It's impossible for you to even understand why people are not doing that. Because when something is, and there is no option to reality, why would you then firstly create the idea it should be different and then feel pain because of it, when it will never be? What's real is real. There is no alternative to reality. Our emotions, however, like to create the stories that there is an alternative to reality, but no, there isn't. And that's why we suffer. So all suffering is for nothing. It's just a misunderstanding. So once you let go of suffering, everything becomes so simple. It doesn't mean that you will not feel pain, but pain is temporary. Pain is basically two different rhythms clashing into each other.
Expectation is the root of all heartache.
Yes.
Shakespeare.
Exactly, and that's exactly what suffering is. But people are addicted to suffering, like the human life form, love suffering, have addiction to it until, one grows out of it. So people suffer until they don't. And it takes that realization that reality is, and there is no alternative to it. And suffering is the idea that it could be different, and it can't.
Wow. I also think, like, when you see something that doesn't work, or you see something that isn't right, or doesn't
let me
feel
stop you right there. That it doesn't work. How do you know that?
Well, because how else would we evolve? What would we be striving for?
No, the thing
if
is,
we,
like, when you
if we
see
were...
something that doesn't work, that's first you label it based on your understanding, based on your expectation,
Yeah.
and you create a story. Again, it should be different.
Yeah.
You don't know whether that what you interpret as not functioning is how it's supposed to function to trigger karma in the people present.
Right.
So it's all about you projecting your story, and this is what karma is. We are projecting our stories, and life showing us, no, that's not how it works. And it's that simple. So you are not able to determine whether or not something is working. You can say whether or not it's working according to your expectations.
Because I'm too busy projecting onto
Exactly. Yes. And when something is wrong, it's the same thing. How do you know? You would have to know the mathematics behind it. You would have to know the karmic expression of every single one involved and what they are here to learn, what they're here to study, the realizations they're working on. But remember, when whenever something is manifested, it's an extension of the projection of their light that they're trying to figure out. And the only way we can notice or interact with something is if it represents part of our own light that we're trying to realize. And we can only realize when we see it. And we see it only when that frequency is being embodied in a manifestation inside of us and we interact with it. Therefore, it's working and it's never wrong.
It makes me feel like every single thing that I've judged over the course of my life was just completely erroneous.
Yes, it is. Because judgment is the idea that the world should work according to your ape brain, which of course it doesn't. No, it never will, and it doesn't have to. It comes also from the idea of when we own truth, we decide the rules, which of course we don't. There are no rules. There is math. And there is life in expression and us adapting to it. We don't need control. We don't even need truth. I always say that we never have to seek truth. All we need to do is to prepare for it. Because when you seek something, you will only be able to find what is within the reach of your current consciousness. By expanding your consciousness, the truth that belongs to that level will already be there. You don't have to seek it. And this is again why we have to come back to expansion of consciousness, because that is how we grow. And the thing is, there are two approaches, as I explained, with a projection of the light becoming different colors and manifestations. And you study them individually because you're in a limited consciousness, and then by studying that part and that part and that part and that part, and you get it, then you can expand. The other way to do it, as people all over the world, in all traditions, figured out is, if I just go to the process of expansion of consciousness, won't I then suddenly get it? And the answer is yes. So instead of just studying like one part at the time, that then will promote the expansion, you can also try to expand directly. But how do you do that? By cracking your mind. By going beyond your concepts and trying to challenge everything you think you believe, everything you think you know, because that is what you need to transform anyway. And you do that normally through the process of fractalization, where you take one bit at the time. So it's slower, but it's more acceptable to the mind because you kind of like change a little bit at the time. Expansion means that you go directly to the concept of your belief.
Yeah.
And you challenge that, because that's the key that will make you expand in all these colors at the same time. And then it's about...
To find that and identify it, though.
Exactly. Because that's the key. What karmic issue is the key to my expansion in this very moment? And you can then learn how to look at your life and see what colors, what keys on my piano have now been activated. And based on that, you can make an assessment and say, okay, it's that principle. Let's focus on the principle instead of me trying to change everything around me.
Yeah, each key individually.
Exactly. So instead of trying to interact and change manifestations in your world, you go directly to the point of changing yourself. You find that principle where you have the resistance, and that's where you work. And this is the key to understand all spiritual practice in all cultures. This is what they've tried to achieve, is recognizing the different blockages in the mind and going for them directly instead of going like through them by interacting with the different ingredients
Yeah,
of
yeah.
that blockage.
It's like the difference between Western medicine and Eastern medicine. One
Yes.
one addresses Western medicine addresses the symptoms, and then Eastern medicine actually addresses the cause.
Exactly. And the reason is, of course, because in the East, they had meditational practices that trained the mind to go to the principle instead of the projection.
Yeah.
Yes. While in the West, we had belief systems that locked the mind into focusing on each individual manifestation.
Yeah. Objectification.
They both work,
yeah.
but they're different approaches. Now, in modern spirituality, what I teach is trying to do both at the same time. As I said, be aware of the keys, listen to the music, understand what life is showing you, and then go at the principle of your karma in your own system, your own mind, because when you do that, it happens so much faster. And everyone can learn how to do this, but it's using the principles and seeing how people have been working with spirituality throughout the ages, and then lift it into the modern world and into a type of approach that is more scientific. It works, but it also requires for the individual to learn how to observe, how to be present, and to be absolutely truthful. You cannot bluff nature.
Or yourself.
Well, people try that too, but if you want truth, you need to learn how to be truthful.
I think my mind would just play tricks on me all day.
And that's why we need discipline. That's what the spiritual practices are for, because the mind always lives in the projection and the stories and the interpretation and denial and the resistance of what is being shown. So we need discipline. And this is why practices have been part of every spiritual tradition on the planet and everywhere else. The practices and spiritual disciplines are basically having something that you do that is aiming at opening your mind, connecting you spiritually, that you do again and again and again and again, no matter how you think, how you feel, or what you do. That's how you crack your mind open.
Consistency.
Consistency. And this is, I think, the challenge with the modern approach of shopping around.
Surface skimming.
Yes, because it means you try this, you try that, but you don't get to the discipline part of it. Because for it to have an impact, you need to do it consistently for years. I often tell people, it doesn't matter what practice you use, choose one, do it.
Every day.
Every
for
day.
years.
As I always say, you can paint a house with a fork if you're desperate. It's not about the technique or the tool, it's how you use it, and the very fact that you're using it consistently with the discipline that will, at some point, create a hole. You know, it will open that door.
God. That's like the biggest, I think, hurdle for me is doing anything consistently for
Yeah.
long periods of time.
Yeah.
It's like, how would I ever expect results if that's not the case?
But on the other hand, do you shower every day?
Yeah.
Do you brush your teeth?
Yes.
Do you eat?
Yes.
Yes. Do you sleep?
Okay, you're right.
Right. And
You caught me.
That's the interesting thing. We have a tendency to believe that spiritual practices and discipline, that it's difficult, but it's basically habits. And when they become habits, we simply do them. It's like brushing your teeth. It's probably not your favorite thing to do, but
Sleeping.
you brush your teeth, you know, but there are many things we do, and we do with discipline because we know we have to do them. When it comes to our spiritual growth, it's seeing it as showering, brushing our teeth, and whatever else we need to do in life, because we brush our teeth to maintain like gum health or whatever, you know. And with spiritual practices, it is getting to that space and that mindset of understanding that I'm doing this to break down my own resistance to life, to what is, so that I can expand and become more of what I am. In the beginning, you have to push yourself.
A lot.
A lot. It's the same thing like when kids learn how to brush their teeth or shower, do they want to? Do they even do it every day? But over the years, they understand the purpose of it. So they do it not because they're told to anymore, but because they understand, oh, I need to have, you know, clean teeth. I should shower because otherwise people will still stay away. I will not get laid, you know? So you start understanding the purpose of it. And it's the same thing with spiritual practices. In the beginning, you have to push, push, push and have that discipline and force because you don't connect to it. You don't see what's in it for me. Once you start connecting, and you can see that the dynamics between you and life change, it becomes more alive. You can start seeing the mirroring, you can see the fractalizations, you can see the music being played, you can like see how you're able to aim for specific blockages and to solve them and how it opens you up. You start seeing it and then you brush your teeth voluntarily.
Getting to that, that's the heaven part.
Yes, but you will have to apply discipline first. And I think in the West, we have forgotten discipline because we're consumers. You know, we want to go
Instant
straight to the good
gratification.
stuff. Yes. And spirituality is not. And in the West, a lot
That's
of
taken me years to understand.
yes. But if you look at modern spirituality, a big chunk of it is that instant gratification. People going to a seminar and being told that they're wonderful. Oh, I knew that. I feel so good. And then they go home and feel divine, you know. But that's not what we're talking about here.
No.
That's okay too, but it will not create growth. It can make you feel more, you know, secure, emotionally balanced, better in the place you're in, but it will not make you grow. So it's realizing what we actually want. People are on different levels of evolution. Some people are still deep asleep and they simply want to survive. They're still learning to try to attain some kind of balance in their mind, some kind of balance in their emotions. But when you start the process of waking up, it's a whole different journey. And then it's all up to you. It's all up to learning about your toolbox, your journey, and how to do it for real without help.
I'll tell you the most frustrating part about that process of being in it, and this is your decision. You've already decided that your path is to wake up. And like once you've decided that, the world can be so frustrating because most humans around you are really happy with the sleep. And so, you know, and then you try to, because of your lack of discipline, in my case, I'm talking about myself, of course. So my lack of discipline, because of it, I will try and do the sleepy stuff with sleepy people. And it doesn't work anymore.
Right.
I can't do any of the things I used to do and enjoy them.
You're right.
It's not fun anymore.
But you have to learn what it means to be in the process of awakening.
You can't go back.
You can't.
When you go back, or I can't go back. I don't know if you can, but
Nobody
like,
can.
It's horrible.
Evolution only
It's like,
goes one way.
I thought I could go back, oh, okay, I get it. This whole waking up thing didn't work out. Let me go back to the party life. No, it doesn't work. I go there, I can do the drugs, I can dance, I can party, and it's not the same.
No, of course it's not. But remember that this is because of your expectations and your stories that you're projecting. Because when you're with a flower, do you feel frustrated?
No, I like flowers.
Exactly. It's still a life form on a very different level of evolution than yourself, but you're not frustrated. You become frustrated with people because you expect them to confirm you, to give you something. When you're with an animal or a plant or a tree, you don't have that expectation. You accept them for where they are in their journey and the level of evolution they're on, and therefore you can have an exchange of love. When you're with people, you're frustrated with their level of consciousness, although they're far above the level of a flower or an animal. You still have that reaction because you expect them to confirm you. You expect them to behave the way you want to so they can satisfy your needs and your story and your need to be included and have identity. You do not project that story or expectation on a plant or an animal. So what you need to let go of is that projection, because then you can be in that setting and enjoy that, oh, this is how they live. This is their level of consciousness. This is their journey. I'm here to experience it. This is not my journey, but it's apparently theirs. Just like you would with animals. You would not be frustrated that they're not like you. So you have to realize that although you share the same life form, you're in a different level of evolution.
Yeah. I guess I just thought I could get drunk and do drugs and I would feel the same way I did when I used to party. And I guess when you're on this path to waking up, it's not the same.
It's not.
At all. And I was just disappointed, that's all. I was like, wah, wah, wah. I was like, aw.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
But in many ways, the more you wake up, the more you have to reinvent what it means to be human. Because, human culture and, the defined human journey is, of course, based on a very low level of consciousness, being deep asleep. And when you're waking up from that, there is no culture. There is no defined way of being human unless you find other humans in the same process, because then you will find there are similarities. And this is why I say all corners unite. Because there are millions of people around the world in this process of awakening. There are more and more advanced souls incarnating as humans, bringing with them a consciousness that is in that awakening process. And there are more and more people. And it's a matter of finding them, recognizing them and connecting, and also create a global culture based on it. And it's in the very beginning, because remember that this culture will take over.
Yeah.
But
eventually, right?
Eventually. But so like the corner is like more and more people will be placed in the corner until it fills the whole fucking space. That's basically what is happening. So it's also up to oneself to recognize that yes, we share the life form, but we're not on the same level. And that's okay. So you can also just decide that, yeah, there are many different ways of being human. Because the human life form has this amazing ability to have an enormous stretch in consciousness, which means it can carry someone with a very high consciousness and someone also who operates on the level of an animal. It all works. So not having any expectations, but also discovering who is this person, what is the journey. It's the same as removing all these other labels of gender and sexuality and whatever. We also need to remove all other labels of expectation so we can see each individual in that actual journey and what is the next step in unfoldment for that individual. so we can promote that and love that and nurture that, whatever it is, not based on our own needs and expectations, but based on that individual's real journey